Welcome to the Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Vantage Fit, the all-in-one AI-powered corporate wellness platform developed by Vantage Circle.
Mindfulness, as we know it, is the primary tool for understanding ourselves. It helps us identify our thoughts and feelings. But what is emotional intelligence? The term emotional intelligence was first coined by Peter Salovey and John Demere in the 1990s. They basically described it as a type of social intelligence, means assessing one's emotions and then directing those thoughts with the help of that information is what defines emotional intelligence. And these two terms have gained a lot of recognition in today's world by the business leaders worldwide. They have actually believed that these terms of emotional intelligence and mindfulness have a great influence on how the employees interact with one another. So let us discuss further on this topic in today's episode of the Vantage Fit podcast. I am your host, Dipshu Bhattacharjee, and today I have with me corporate trainer and coach, Amy McKay. Having found relief through fitness, nutrition, and meditation after struggling with health issues at a very young age, Amy now empowers CEOs and their teams to find more time for fun and family without costing productivity in business. Besides this, Amy spends much of her time with her two daughters, Alisa and Alina. Welcome to the show, Amy.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. I appreciate you asking me.
Now, before we proceed, I would like to request Amy and our listeners to start this session with a 2-minute meditation practice. Shall we?
So I would invite, if anyone listening feels comfortable, to get in a seated position with your feet on the floor and your hands in your lap. And you don't have to close your eyes. You can, if you feel comfortable, close your eyes. If not, then just lower your eyes slightly and find a focal point and just use that focal point. If you feel comfortable enough, then you can close your eyes. You're going to sit with your spine erect, but your shoulders relaxed. So you can go ahead and lift your shoulders up and then drop them down. And that's how you know that you're kind of in that relaxed position. So you're grounded and connected at the same time. So you can maybe now bring your awareness to your for just a moment. Maybe noticing how you're seated on the chair. Begin to sense your fingers. Feel your head suspended in space. If at any time you feel uncomfortable, then just go ahead and pause and stop. But for this practice, we're just going to do a few things that are just going to help you to relax into this moment. Go ahead and take a big breath in and breathe out. Another big breath in. This time allow the exhale to be longer. Just do this for a few cycles of breath where you're allowing yourself to inhale and exhale. Breathing in, breathing out. We're just settling into this moment. Kind of part of the experience, and they become less intense the more you practice. And every time you have a thought or get distracted by a sound or a sensation, just bring your awareness back to your breath. It can help if you would like, you can put your hand on your chest or on your abdomen. Kind of use that as an anchor. You could try for a moment sensing the breath as it goes through the nose and out the nose. You'll feel that sensation of air moving. Feel that for a moment. And we'll get this breath and bring awareness back to that spot. Now feel the rise and fall of your chest as you inhale and exhale. Bring your awareness to your abdomen. Feel the expansion and the contraction. You notice the feeling of your clothing. Now for a few moments, notice your whole chest and belly breathing. So you're going to feel that air in your lungs and like your front and your back and your side. So it's whole diaphragmatic breathing. Be very gentle. Inhaling and exhaling. Breathe in to the fullness of the body and back out. Soothing, relaxing. Sometimes judgments will come up or different things, but all you're doing is guiding. It's kind of like riding a bicycle. If you practice, when you first learn to ride a bicycle, you get distracted and fall to one side or the other side, and eventually it gets a little bit easier to keep on track, and your mind's kind of the same way. A few more cycles of breath. Now just give yourself a little bit of love and attention here, and maybe just say to yourself something like, may I be at ease. May I be at peace. May I be well. May I be loved. Do that while focusing on your breathing. Just hold that space for a moment. Take a couple more mindful breaths. And then bring your awareness back to your body, to your fingers and your toes. And if your eyes were closed, you can open them. Just notice the energy of the room and how your body feels and how your mind feels. Just a couple minutes like that can shift your focus and clarity and peace of mind pretty quickly. Even sometimes a couple breaths. I appreciate you taking the time, those that listened and practiced. You can do this anytime and any place. No one would even know. So it's easy to use. People always say they don't have time to meditate, but you're always breathing. So at any time you can take a moment to breathe. So whenever you're ready, you can.
Yeah, breathing is something we do every second of the day, right? So I don't think investing 2 minutes on meditation daily would be that difficult. In fact, all of us should do it like on a regular basis. Anyway, moving on to the topic. So, Amy, tell us what comes to mind when you hear the terms mindfulness and emotional intelligence. Do you really think there is an interconnection between the two?
Absolutely. I think one of the best books I ever read, and part of my mindfulness teacher training, was a book called Search Inside Yourself. And it's actually a program born out of Google, and it's their emotional intelligence program. And in it, Daniel Goleman, who is very much so a leader in emotional intelligence, basically defines self-awareness as this, it's a neutral mode. I'm going to read his definition. A neutral mode that maintains self-reflectiveness even in the midst of turbulent emotions. And then Jon Kabat-Zinn, he's essentially the godfather of mindfulness. He defines mindfulness as paying attention on purpose in a particular way in the present moment and non-judgmentally. So we see that self-awareness and mindfulness have basically the same definition. They're paying attention to what's going on and making a choice based off that. And self-awareness is this key aspect of emotional intelligence. I think it's just absolutely vital. So that's where that's how I made the connection between the two. There was some common sense in my mind. It just made sense. But then when I went through training, and my experience kind of led me to believe that mindfulness it just made sense. There's also some neuroscience on it. When you begin it's called affect labeling in psychology. When you begin to name, and we call it mindful emotions, but when you begin to name what you're feeling and get in touch with your feelings, you start to deactivate your amygdala, and which allows you access to your prefrontal cortex. So that's where all those executive type thinking attributes come from. So that's why it's important, is it gets you out of fight, flight, or freeze mode and into, intuitive, creative, conscious decision making. That's why, that's why it's emotionally intelligent, because it's no longer reactive, it's conscious.
Yeah, totally. Because I believe that with mindfulness and emotional intelligence, one becomes self-aware, right? So when there's self-awareness, it usually leads to conscious decision making, right? So the decisions we make are more logical and practical. So having talked about the connection between mindfulness and emotional intelligence, So I'm going to ask you the next question, which is, do you think mindfulness breeds emotional intelligence?
Yes, and that would be why. I mean, the science is there. The neuroscience is for sure there. And we call it, in mindfulness, the phrase we often use is practice the pause. And basically it means, before you send a text message when you're mad, or before you do anything, just take a moment and pay attention to your breath. Just pause, do something mindful, tune into your body, practice some gratitude, do something before you make a decision or before you react to something. If you take that, practice that pause, you're going to make an emotionally intelligent decision instead of, some reactive decision. Because again, like psychology, 80% of the time when we respond to something, a lot of times it's emotional reaction. We're just triggered by something and it's emotionally charged. We're not even paying attention to what's really going on. We're just reacting. So if we can take that moment to pause, you just gain insight. Like, what am I really feeling? What am I thinking? How can I make this situation better, instead of just, basically just hollering what you're upset about or whatever. Do it more mindfully, do it more emotionally intelligently. When you validate somebody and how they feel and express how you feel, the opportunity for that to actually come up with solutions is significantly higher.
Yeah, so people these days are very impulsive, right? So when we face like a situation, we instantly react without thinking twice. So I guess this emotional intelligence and mindfulness, so becoming mindful is what we need at the moment. Yeah. So that brings me to the next question, which is, in today's world, how would you say emotional intelligence benefits us?
Well, there's a variety of different ways. So relationships would be the first thing that comes to mind. So if you're emotionally intelligent, you're going to potentially have an easier time communicating. So say you have a partner, your significant other, you're going to solve problems better, together if you talk about what's going on. Your successes at work are going to be higher because you're going to understand who you are and what you need, or what your employer needs, or what you need from your staff, because you understand what's going on. People need, I think empathy is the most needed skill, especially in our world today, that was ever needed. So I think even in terms of your being in tune with your own body, you make better decisions if you know that when you're in tune with your body and you know that do you like to lift weights? Or do you like to do yoga? Do you, what sorts of foods do you eat? There's all these decisions that to me, just emotional intelligence allows you to make conscious decisions that improve your well-being, your relationships, and your success rate.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because in terms of relationships and everything, I guess communication is one vital factor which seems to be missing sometimes. Yeah. So they also say there are certain elements that make emotional intelligence. What do you think are those elements?
I think there's a lot of different elements. Then there's some people that teach specific emotional intelligence traits related to emotional intelligence. I focus on the mindfulness-based aspect. So I'm going to tell you straight from my Mindful Schools of California, the training I did through them. And I think these are some of the most important leadership traits. And these are the traits that they taught us to embody. And you don't have to do all of them, obviously. But these are the ones that they all matter. And so some of them you'll do naturally. So one of them is sensitivity. So think about when we talk emotional intelligence, that means that you know what you're feeling, what other people are feeling, what's going on, what's the energy of the room, and how to make decisions off that. So being sensitive to that and being empathetic to that is vital. Solidity, that is being grounded, being present. Your voice matters, your tone of voice, the words you choose to use. Authenticity, you have to be authentic. You want to find your own style and be comfortable. Being honest, disclosure is another one. Being a little bit vulnerable. Non-identification. So basically that means don't take what everybody else says personally, because you're not going to teach everybody. You're not going to reach everybody. Being curious. So you want to ask questions and recognize, and then also recognize successes. So those are like 8 traits of being an emotionally intelligent, self-aware, mindfulness-based leader. So like I say, again, you can't embody all of them. Some of them will be natural. and that you should really focus on choosing at least, several of them and owning those in your leadership style. And how does that work for you? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, like possessing all these elements, can make one consciously driven, and this will come eventually if one starts to practice mindfulness and attain emotional intelligence. So moving further, where do you reckon we need emotional intelligence the most?
Where do we need to practice the most? I think, everywhere. It's a personal practice, but you have to use it when you're dealing with people. I always say we can't escape dealing with people. I mean, no matter what you do, even if you work alone, you're always going to have to deal with people. So use it in your relationships, definitely everywhere for sure. And in the workplace, it's probably needed more now than ever when we, how many people lost their jobs, lost their businesses, are starting over. People are working from home. There's, I don't know about it in the United States. There's a lot of people that are homeschooled now. There's a lot of people are staying homeschooled. It's a different scenario. So we need to really, really practice being empathetic and supporting each other and finding out what's going on, in personal lives and professional lives, and how do we and some of that's all blended now. So we need to figure out what it is people need to be the most successful. And it starts with finding out how they're feeling and why they're feeling that way and what's going on.
So since we already mentioned, we have to practice emotional intelligence in the workplace. So can you tell me a little bit more, how much do you think we should practice emotional intelligence in the workplace?
Well, I think we should practice all the time. It allows for clarity and confidence. That's why. And we really need that in the workplace. You want clarity and confidence because that's going to equal success. And that's also going to equal happy and healthy people. So you could have the productivity still met and the people happy and healthy. So you're going to have resilience, and you're not going to lose money. A lot of businesses lose money. To be able to bring all that together, there's different ways to practice it. I always suggest that leadership gets coaching training and that they have group training for everybody else. I think that that's super important. But I also think that there's little things you can do. For example, before a meeting, set some intentions or say some gratitude or ask people to name the feeling that they're feeling. I mean, there's things that you can do to start bringing awareness to that. Creating a culture that allows for emotional intelligence instead of people being shut down, being really more open about it and asking. Leaders need to be asking. I've seen corporations really mess up and try to give teams something that they think they need and the leadership not be in on it, or not ask all these teams what they, all these other employees what they need. Well, find out what they need and what's going on with them. Be real, be really authentic and find out what it is instead of assuming because you're in a leadership position or that you're the CEO that you know it. Because I have read some articles that suggest a lot of times the higher up the CEOs are the ones that are lacking self-awareness and emotional intelligence more than anyone else, and they refuse to look at it. So I think it's super important that the leadership and CEOs get on board, do the practice, and then do specific practices. Do the mindfulness-based practices. Mindfulness training. We have 10,000 worksheets. We have half a dozen practices that you can do 12,000 different ways that help train your brain. And that's what you have to do. You have to do it individually, and then you have to show that that's you have this energy, these 8 things that I listed. That's how you bring that energy to a team and to your workplace. So you have to be that change. You have to hold space for that. You have to ask a lot of questions. You have to be willing to look at what's really wrong and what's going on and what do people need, and then do something about it.
Yeah, even I believe that, especially with leaders, because leaders are who we look up to, right? So if they are willing to listen, if they are willing to practice emotional intelligence in the workplace, so what's stopping the rest of us? Yeah. So that brings me to another side of the coin, which is mindfulness. What is your opinion about practicing mindfulness at work?
Well, I think a lot of times this stuff mindfulness it's so overused now that we call mindful everything mindful. So the real definition of mindfulness is really just this space of paying attention on purpose, and you're just not judging anything. And there's also this aspect we've referred to as equanimity, which means you're still okay with you're okay with whatever's going on in the moment. You're not, stressed about it or whatever. You're just being with that moment. So trying to bring mindfulness actually to the workplace isn't going to exactly look like that. What it's going to look like is just making more conscious decisions. So perhaps it is how you lead meetings. Perhaps it's how you talk to coworkers. Perhaps it's how you change the schedule. There's lots of different things. It's really, really, I would say, about being curious and being compassionate. Because if you can ask a lot of questions about your thoughts and feelings and your actions, if you dig deep into yourself, it allows you to make better decisions. And then if you can encourage everybody else, to do the same thing, again, you're just going to have better decisions, which leads to just better success rates all around.
Since you have established the fact that mindfulness leads to conscious decision making, so how do you think we can implement mindfulness in the workplace?
So there's some specific practices that would be very much so individually done, would be like mindful breathing is a big one, which we kind of started on, which can be done many different ways. But mindful breathing, doing body scans, which is, again, can be done a number of different ways, but it's tuning in to your body. Gratitude, loving kindness, that's another one. Simply paying attention to sounds. There's a number of these little practices that are just tuning in to what's going on. And what happens is you develop this ability. I don't have the phrase in front of me, a quote that basically what it says is, when you begin to practice mindfulness stuff, that it creates space. So you train your brain to not be so reactive, and it's in that space, that meditation's that space in between thoughts. And when you're in that space, you make totally different decisions. So I just encourage people to do these little, if you're sitting at your desk, take a moment and ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? Find out how you're feeling. If you're like, oh my gosh, I'm freaking angry right now. Well, we in mindfulness say invited in for tea. So you'll make friends with it, ask questions. Why am I angry? What am I thinking about? Who is it I'm mad about? What did they do? What can I do about it? There's all these, does it have a color? Does it have a sensation? There's all this stuff you can tune into. You can just stop and take a few mindful breaths. I will put my hands on my chest and say something like, may I be at ease. And I put a Post-it note on my laptop that says those phrases, those loving kindness things or things. And you could choose whatever you want. I say, may I be at ease, at peace, be well, and be loved. But you don't have to use those. You can choose the ones that work for you. And you just say them to yourself. It calms you. It's soothing. It allows you to get into that very mindful space. Gratitude is another one that's really popular, a really common thing in mindfulness. Just being grateful kind of shifts the energy as well. It's important in mindfulness, emotional intelligence really is, instead of just going with the energy of the room and the energy of what's going on, it's you shifting that energy. That's way more empowering. You be the change, you be aware of what you're thinking and feeling and why you behave the way you do so that you can make the changes. That's what mindfulness and self-awareness do. Emotional intelligence, that's what they do, is allow you to be the best you that you can be and be the best you can for your community and for the world.
Yeah, in fact, there is a line, right? Be the change. So if we become the change, then only we can change others, right? So it's basically follow what we preach. So anyway, moving on, there is a term called resilience, right? So people often say that mindfulness and resilience come together. So how much truth, according to you, lies in that statement? Does the former help develop the latter?
Yeah, I think, again, the truth lies on if you practice. So I know a lot of people that like the idea of mindfulness, and I believe mindfulness helps one become resilient because you have more awareness, so you can make different choices. Let's say you just keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and you're stressed and overwhelmed, and now you're having health issues or something related to that. Well, had you practiced some mindfulness-based stuff, you might have had the self-awareness to know, oh, well, when I notice that I'm not sleeping as well and I don't eating as well, that I need to take a break. So there's this ability to prevent burnout and stress and recover through mindfulness.
And honestly speaking, I feel stress is something all of us are experiencing in today's world. And in fact, with the pandemic, I guess even the burnout rates are like at its peak. Anyway, there is a new concept of mindful leadership. So what do you think about that?
Again, I think that's kind of one of those things that's been overused. And there are some great organizations that teach specific mindful leadership stuff. And I focus those 8 things: the sensitivity, solidity, voice, authenticity, disclosure, non-identification, curiosity, and success are the things that for leadership to me embody a couple of those, and you will be well on your way to embracing mindful leadership, because you want it to be this, true, emotional, intelligent, aware. That's what you want,
So just like every good thing has certain shortcomings, do you think there are any pitfalls of emotional intelligence and mindfulness?
Yeah, because people think that, and it's not really emotional intelligence. A lot of what I've seen a lot of are people that end up thinking that they have it all figured out just because they've taken a lot of classes or that they've studied it a lot or even practiced it a lot. It's a lifelong practice. It's not it's a get up and do it every day. And sometimes you don't do it every day and then you come back to it. It is a lifelong, mindfulness and emotional intelligence are lifelong skills that we have to just keep coming back to, that we develop. And the practices get deeper and you get better. And then sometimes we're human, right? So we don't always do it perfectly. But I think people get caught up in the idea that they've got it figured out, and that's not the case. It's always something you can come back to and get, for lack of a better word, get better at.
Yeah, like it is basically the thing that learning is never ending, right? So even if you think that we have it all figured out, there is some part of it which still needs to be worked upon. Yeah. So last but not the least, would you like to give us and our listeners any valuable suggestions?
Yeah, I would say take the 2-minute challenge. Like we started this 2-minute, and if you want, I'll send you a link. I have a link to one of my audios. It's just a couple minute practice. Do the 2-minute. I just say take the 2-minute challenge. Like stop for 2 minutes once a day or a couple times a day or whatever works out in your schedule. Choose one time a day and just practice for 2 minutes. We don't have to start making it. Don't make it overcomplicated or stressed out, but just start. And if you start doing 2 minutes a day, you can add to it. You can do it more times a day, and just notice how you feel when you do it. Notice what you're feeling before, and notice how you feel during, and notice how you feel after, because then you'll be inspired to do it more, and then you'll feel more empowered to become more emotional intelligent and be able to really have the happiness and success that you want to see.
Thank you so much, Amy, for joining us today. I hope you had a great time, because I had a great time, and I'm sure our listeners did as well. The entire session was very insightful, and I'm looking forward to connect with you soon, maybe on a different topic this time. And I hope you had a great day ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast. Please do subscribe to Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and our YouTube channel for new episodes.